We heard during our first panel about the hospital of the future and how digital medicine will play a large role and is already. So let's dive deeper into the world of digital medicine with our panelists, Professor Ivo Petrov, head of the Cardiology, Angiology, and Electrophysiology Department at Acibadem City Clinic Hospital in Sofia, Bulgaria, Milena Stoicheva, chair of Bulgaria's Digital Health and Innovation Cluster, who also teaches innovation and entrepreneurship as a visiting professor with the EIT Digital Master School, and Yakov Geva, managing director and CEO of G Medical, who is a well-known pioneer in the industry of medical devices and remote monitoring. And back with us once more, Professor Ze'ev Rothstein. Welcome, everyone. A round of applause, please. Please feel free to take some water, get hydrated. Okay, first question for you, Professor Rothstein, on the other side. We spoke earlier about how technological advances are changing hospital healthcare. How is digital health changing the overall healthcare landscape?
You know, a couple of years ago when we spoke about digital disruption, we didn't actually know how depth are we going to enter with the digitalization of the whole healthcare system, not only the hospital, but specifically the hospital. So the first slogan was paperless hospital, and then filmless hospital. And then, you know, we started to digital all our processes. And I'm speaking not only on the medical processes, but also on the administrative and management tools, etc. And all of a sudden, you close your eyes, you open them again, and you find another type of hospital. You know, I have to confess, a couple of good years ago, together with Yakov Geva, who is sitting together with us, we discussed the problem of patient in internal medicine department. That the last visit of the nurse was in midnight, and then in the morning, unfortunately, some of the patients were found black, without respiration. And, you know, you cannot monitor, at that time, all the patients in the internal medicine department. And we came together upon an idea that we centrally monitor all the patients in the hospital, regardless where they are, you know, hospitalized. And this concept of total monitoring, of fully monitoring our patients, and do it in a digital way, because in an analog way, you cannot spare people who watch the monitors 24 hours. You have to invent digital way of analyzing and do, I would say, alerting, automatic alerting, triggering, sending, calling, whatever, okay, all these buzz names, in order to protect your patient. And see, today, we are discussing together the future. Is the hospital at home where the patient is monitored all the time, and not only for respiration and cardiac rhythm, etc., but many more vital signs are, I would say, remotely monitored. And there is no doubt that the digital disruption of the whole healthcare system is move ahead and very fastly.
Thank you. Professor Petrov, as a cardiologist, I'd like to ask, what is the potential of AI for diagnosing and treating heart disease and improving research?
Thank you, first of all, for this conference. It's definitely bringing us high technology and innovation. That is really a mission in nowadays practice, medical practice. Cardiology is dealing with one of the biggest problems of nowadays medicine, cardiovascular diseases. For Europe, unfortunately, almost the half, exactly 47% of the mortality is due to cardiovascular diseases, the so-called diseases of the circulation. And the unmet need of treatment of cardiovascular disease is huge. one of the biggest tasks and mission of the European Society of Cardiology to reduce dramatically the burden of cardiovascular disease in European population. So the artificial intelligence and digital technology is definitely one of the ways how this can be done. And absolutely by purpose, one of the most active chapters of the European Society of Cardiology is the so-called e-cardiology, electronic cardiology, with conferences meeting more and more interest and more people. Nowadays, even more in the war and pandemic environment, to bring the data, the exact data of cardiology patients to the doctor, and just the vice versa, to bring the doctor closer to the patient. For example, during the war situation, the only method for a doctor to receive information for his remote patient is the digital technology. Professor Geva, Professor Rothstein, they are pioneers in the field. In Bulgaria also we have several very interesting devices, digital devices, gathering physiologic vital signs like not only ECG but also respiration, CO2, position of the patient, and nowadays the simple walking trackers that were popular since several years are becoming really medical devices, medical grade devices. And I think that this transformation from simple trackers and utility devices to medical grade devices is the real step ahead that can bring the modern medicine to the physician and to the patient. So based on this reliable data, the medical doctor can take the right decision, the right treatment, and even more, probably in the future, hopefully, even robotic and distant digital surgery. So I think this is definitely a huge challenge that can be overcome thanks to the artificial intelligence.
I want to follow up to that question about smart wearables. How do you see these as a prevention, diagnosis, and management of cardiovascular disease, and how do you see this developing in your field?
This is probably one of the most fast evolving field of the technology. In order to keep the easiness of use and comfortable of the patient, such devices are definitely becoming more and more popular among not only patients, but also among potential patients. So many people would like to have notion about their health without or before being patient. So this is very crucial, and based on artificial intelligence, and especially it's very modern now, the so-called neural network analysis. There are many publications, not several, many publications showing how important is the artificial intelligence analysis for such investigation like simple ECG. It resulted that the ECG is not so simple. And it resulted that the ECG can give notion not only about the rhythm, but can give us notion about the left ventricle function, about the valvular function, and this can be used to detect in the early stage of the disease possible complication in the early stage of a particular patient. So all this data and all these devices, for example, infrared temperature camera can give us a notion about the peripheral circulation, about the brain circulation. And based on this high resolution data, together with the artificial intelligence analysis and neural network analysis, it can give us reliable data on time, before the process of the disease is too deep to be treated. So we saw how important to keep the data about the renal function, and also not only the renal, the brain, the sleep, the ECG, the heart rate, all this is very important to have as doctor, to have the data on time in order to treat the patient on time and to reduce hospitalizations and to reduce cost. For example, there are almost 200 billion in Europe spent for cardiovascular diseases. So you can guess how much the society is spending for such a big problem.
Thank you so much. This question is for Yakov Geva. Your company, G Medical, is a leader in various fields of digital health. As a product developer, how do you see technology reshaping the capability to care for patients remotely and from home? Yes.
It works. So I'm the one that is preaching for telemedicine for more than 30 years. And for many years, there was the ones that were listening but didn't know what to do with it, and the ones that didn't want to listen because they thought that we are going to take away the business from them, which is the contrary of really what telemedicine is doing, because the doctor can see 20, 30 patients a day, cannot see 300 patients a day. And telemedicine can see hundreds of patients, even thousands of patients a day. I can tell you a very short story, which is very interesting as to the notion of how this is evolving. A couple of years ago, as a member of the Royal Society of Medicine in the UK, I gave a speech in front of 300 doctors about telemedicine and what digital health can do for us. One of the doctors stand up and say, "Dr. Gera, I don't agree with you. I want to see my patient, I want to hug my patient, I want to touch my patient." I said, "Yeah, you are a great doctor, but what happened at 3 o'clock in the morning on a weekend? You want to see your patient and touch the patient? 3:30, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, you are in Mallorca on your vacation." I mean, it became really a funny story. So this is what doctors, some think about it. I had a lot of sessions with Professor Rothstein about telemedicine and how to develop telemedicine, and we developed a lot of technologies. Part of them remain on the shelf because we were like 10, 15 years ahead of the industry, but eventually this is what we are looking for. We want to take away the patients from the hospital and from the doctors as much as we can. So coronavirus did it for us. Suddenly it came from nowhere and did it for us. Today, patient doesn't want to go to the hospital. They don't want to go to the doctor, not because they don't like it. A hospital is a sad place to be. A doctor has 70 people waiting, queuing to see him. So in different countries, it takes 2 hours to get to the clinic. In London, you have to wait 3 weeks to see your GP. Telemedicine, digital health, home care is the solution to reduce dramatically the cost of medicine and increasing dramatically the level of care and quality of life. This is where we are heading with our company, and we are looking into the future of developing more and more capabilities of testing patients. I call it, patients and consumers, because sometimes you're not a patient. That you can do a lot of tests at home, in your bed, and, making it easy for your life.
Very encouraging. Next question for you, Dr. Geva. What about the issue of digital privacy? How can we protect medical health data being collected by wearables and mobile devices? This could be a threat.
Okay. So first of all, we are talking about medical devices that are FDA, CE approved. We are not talking about gadgets that doesn't have any regulation or any regulatory control. So usually we control and we protect the data via HICFA HIPAA regulation. And just for people that are not really in this business, think of how you transfer your information from bank to bank, from requests that you are asking money, staying in front of the wall. All this is protected. We are protecting the data as well in the same environment. Yes, if you'll ask me whether a hacker can hack, yeah. If they can hack to the Pentagon, they can probably hack to G Medical or to Clalit for this sake.
Thank you. Ms. Milena Stoicheva, great to have you with us. Question for you. I'd like to ask you about the entrepreneurial side. In healthcare, the maxim is first, do no harm. But for innovators, it's break things and move fast. How do you balance these two? How do you disrupt on the one hand and also do no harm on the other?
Thank you for having me here. It's really a great pleasure to be part of this conference. Every time I come, I actually leave with a boost of energy. And I see this in everyone, people of different ages. So to your question, I wanted to bring a notion which is known as creative distraction. It was invented by Joseph Schumpeter. He's a famous economist, and he is one of the philosophers about the innovation mechanism. And in that mechanism, there is the dichotomy of how you actually consolidate and bring together, leverage the new with the old. In free enterprise, there is a natural process of outdating products and services that leave the market simply because they are no longer needed. And they are also replaced very quickly by this innovation mechanism of new products and services that are being created for the consumers and the customers. And in this mechanism, you can see actually that dichotomy. The healthcare sector in general and medicine has been one of the probably slowest to be disrupted. But what happened with digitalization and also the pandemic also, digitalization is the enabler to moving that disruption and maybe opening it up to that sector. And it's becoming, as we see it, inevitable. So one way to solve this big issue is to start thinking about healthcare really as another very big unexplored sector of the economy, really as one of the most perspective spaces where we can add value, and that value can be added both for the patients and the citizens as well as for the industry, and not see it as a liability, but see it more as an asset for our economies. So moving towards more ecosystem innovation-based business models that really are looking at collaboration as a forum through which to achieve innovation and to accelerate that innovation for the quality of life of people is, to me, one of the good ways to look at it.
Thank you. Professor Goldstein, one of the biggest trends for the big data industry in the healthcare field is the use of predictive analytics. As one of Israel's most experienced hospital directors, how is this producing cost savings and also improving patient outcomes?
I'm a great believer in big data. Today, we are able to collect huge amount of data and to communicate with the data and to take from the data everything that we really want in real time. This is the development of technology. So, you know, one calculated how much information we are collecting and how much information is being used. And the surprising number is we only use 4% of the data that we are collecting. in a platform called ODM, which I'm involved in developing it. We dream and we develop a huge cloud of big data, which include 100% of the data, which we use only 4%, and we will start using the rest, the 96% of the information for prevention. I'll give you just one example. We are going to our dentist, and automatically, almost all the times, they send you to do a panoramic, I would say, CT of the jaws, and you look for, for your teeth, and for your mandible, etc. But the rest of information that is in this picture, in this photo, is not being used. Once again, if everything goes to the cloud and we have huge big data, we realize that in the same, I would say, X-ray that we did, we see the carotid artery bifurcation. We can calculate the level of stenosis of it. So, you are going to a dentist, he's fixing your teeth, the information is there. And it's important data that can be used to prevent stroke, for example, on an individual patient, or to monitor the level of stenosis of the carotid artery, which represent atheroscleral diseases, okay? And I would say on a big level to follow up patients and make conclusion very wise. If we are speaking about predictive and try to use the data, my colleague, cardiologist over there, he started to speak about ECG, and really it pumped me with a lot of confidence. Because, for example, we are doing, together with Jakob, we are doing a lot of ECG analysis. We develop algorithm to discover atrial fibrillation, because atrial fibrillation is very important to try to prevent or to treat or to prevent strokes for me. And one thing, like heart rate variability, were not used yet. But heart rate variability can be used as predictor for imminent MI and coronary artery syndrome. It's something that we didn't do in the past because we didn't know what to do with the information. So we did digitalization and with big data, we can use it as predictive. So instead of waiting to the unfortunate 25% chances that acute MI will actually be, the first symptom will be sudden death, we can anticipate, okay, and take, I would say the patient say, you are in a situation that you might develop very shortly coronary artery disease, I would say, or coronary artery syndrome or heart attack or whatever, and try to prevent it. So I am a great believer in prevention. Here in the audience, there are certain people who actually, I would say, invested it all their life in trying to prevent diseases. So from the big data to treat individual patient and try to cure him, to take this data, use it wisely, and prevent diseases, this is our future in both fields and especially in cardiology.
If you allow me,
Yes.
totally in support with Professor Rothstein, our colleagues from radiology departments all over the world, now during the pandemic, they share with us how many early stages cancer, pulmonary cancer, they saw because of the COVID hospitalization as a reason. They saw a lot of early stages tumors of the lung, and this is totally supporting what you are saying. In case we put all this data into the brain of a machine, we can in fact prevent many, and we can operate on time and give chemotherapy on time of millions of people that can be saved. We can save their life. And Ms. Stoicheva, she mentioned very well about discoveries and innovation. And because this conference is dedicated to innovation, we have discussed with her that, in fact, there are many, many discoveries that can stay only on the level, on the stage of discovery. Professor Geva mentioned that since 15 years ago, Dr. Geva mentioned that some of their discoveries, they were not implemented. And in order a scientific discovery to become an innovation, it has to be implemented into the business sector in order to reach the people, to reach the population really.
We expect that to continue, especially after today. And our last question for this panel, Milena Stoicheva, please. As an entrepreneur, what kind of opportunities do you see for Israeli companies in the digital health field in Central and Eastern Europe?
Again, thank you. It's a very relevant question, and I think Israel not only is the startup nation, but it's also the biggest innovator in the world. And for me, there are very concrete examples of how Israel can continue and be contributor to this market. I would outline first two that might be considered light touch, but in fact they are quite real. One is staying as an inspiration, because you are breathing and living innovation and being entrepreneurial. I was just making the comment that I see people of every age here who are different experts, scientists, specialists, and they are all able to create and to set up their own companies and to move their research from being research to really impacting the lives of people. So I think being in that position, staying as inspirers and probably moving that all that work toward the market is one element. Another one is being the role models and being the incubators where you are transferring your knowledge to the others, maybe being the mentors. And in this regard, I think Central and Eastern Europe could be a very good partner, because these are younger economies that have also been in transitions quite a lot, and there is a very good tech entrepreneurial talent that should be combined with the medical and scientific excellence that you have, but also show the model that everyone can be an entrepreneur and can support that work of growing products and services really for improving lives and for keeping people happier on the planet. So this is a responsibility for all of us, and teaching the younger generation that this is a way of living and a career opportunity is extremely important.
Comment?
Last remark, Israeli companies, and it's a public notice that we are living in Pax Americana, so every company would like to get to the USA first, which is, of course, a mistake. If you don't pass through Central and East Europe, you will never get to USA. So what I advocated to the oil companies that are presenting here, it's much closer, okay, and there are many more, I would say, smart people in Central and East Europe. And your company, take yourself there and see how close it to the American market.
Yeah, maybe one last very practical point is we were doing some research on what are the opportunities for innovation and startups in this region. And one of the opportunities is that we are able, because of the technological talent, to very quickly grow companies in that sector. However, all of our economies are smaller economies. And so we are needing that market validation and market access, which is very similar to what the Israeli companies are experiencing. I think you have a great way and model of you have established over the years, being a startup nation, to move to the US and use US as a validation market. However, as you pointed, Professor Ostin, it's closer, and maybe it's because it's more diverse, it's even better to do market validation here and do it in a collaborative way with the startups and the companies from here. So we're open to that.
Comment?
Yeah, in fact, it's definitely a win-win situation. The confidence definitely is mutual. So we can collaborate on an excellent way because, like many of the speakers mentioned, it's in interest of the patients and in interest of the business. So this is definitely a win-win situation.
Thank you so much. We're going to wrap up this energizing, encouraging conversation. Thank you for breathing inspiration into the room today to all of the panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.